D. You are looking at the entire bacterial population of planet Earth. It may look like nothing but a fuzzy gray blob, but believe me, there's a lot here. In fact, there are about 5 billion bacteria for every person on Earth, and they make our lives possible. So let's find out what happens if bacteria didn't exist. 1. In a world without bacteria, people might think it would be a cleaner world, and that's not actually true. You just don't see the bacteria that cause disease and decay. But when all bacteria vanished, you'd notice something else missing. All of the dead stuff that's normally decomposed. When this happens, dead plants, dead animals, even your own dead skin cells would start piling up everywhere. 2. Within days, you'd find yourself surrounded by fallen trees in an untouched forest floor. Deer carcasses would lay around, and no vultures circle overhead. They're gone too. That's because bacteria play a vital role in every ecosystem on Earth. In the absence of these organisms, our world would rapidly begin to collapse. 3. And one of the first things to go would be farmland. All of the world's crops rely on bacteria to fix nitrogen from the atmosphere into forms that plants can actually use. Without bacteria, our soils would quickly become depleted of usable nitrogen. And after a single growing season, most farmland would die. And so would most of humanity. Starving populations would quickly tear down any remaining forests in search of food, dooming themselves. 4. But some people would survive, at least for a while. Like those living in remote villages who still relied on traditional methods of farming, fishing, or hunting. But they wouldn't stay healthy for long. That's because another thing that would vanish along with all bacteria is our own gut microbiome. This collection of trillions of bacteria that live inside us helps us digest food, regulate our immune system, and even produce vitamins. Without it, humans would struggle with severe diarrhea, rampant infections, and malnutrition. In short, none of us would survive more than a few weeks. 5. It wouldn't just be humans suffering. Every animal would suffer the same fate. But on a global scale, the impact would be felt most keenly in our oceans. While microscopic marine bacteria only make up a tiny percentage of all ocean life, they're responsible for producing over half of all the oxygen we breathe. That's because the sun's rays penetrate the surface of the water and supercharge these bacteria with energy. And since sunlight can't get very deep into the ocean, most marine bacteria live in the shallows, where their productivity is high. Here you have corals, sponges, seagrasses, and phytoplankton, all dependent on the oxygen produced by the bacteria. Without these, our oceans would turn to lifeless graveyards within a matter of hours. 6. But it wouldn't take long before land-based creatures would suffer too. As atmospheric oxygen levels plummeted, breathing would become difficult, especially for us humans, whose lungs are less efficient at extracting oxygen from the air than those of other mammals. We'd probably last a few minutes before succumbing to suffocation, along with most birds, insects, and land animals. Only critters that could absorb oxygen through their skin, like salamanders and earthworms, would survive. So in a world without bacteria, the vast majority of life on Earth would vanish within a year. 7. Our planet would become a silent, lifeless graveyard. Mountains, rivers, and lakes would remain, but all the surrounding land would turn to dust. Crops would wither in fields, flocks of birds would freeze in mid-flight. The great herds of migrating wildebeests would fall in their tracks. Even giant sequoia trees, which can live for thousands of years, would die within months, crashing to the ground and joining the growing pile of dead stuff that had decomposed in the first place. 8. Meanwhile, the oceans would be in chaos. Currents would shift as winds blow across the lifeless waves. Storms would churn up entire ecosystems, mixing dead plankton with the bodies of whales and fish. Sunlight would penetrate the surface and trigger toxic algal blooms, killing whatever creatures had survived the oxygen crash. 9. Then something strange would happen. Some of the world's largest animals would begin to emerge. That's because in a world without bacteria, the bottom would fall out of the food chain. Scavengers would disappear first, followed by predators. With no decomposers, dead animals wouldn't decompose, but also no bacteria meant no nutrient recycling. Plants would starve, herbivores would starve, then the carnivores would starve. But some animals, like turtles, crocodiles, and sharks, could survive without eating for years. They'd emerge from their hiding places to find a world that was completely changed. 10. A few decades later, all that would remain of Earth's living things are a few hardy species of microbes. And they would face a bleak future. Without bacteria, Earth wouldn't be cleaner. It would be a silent, lifeless graveyard. The smallest life forms keep the planet alive, and without bacteria, Earth would die. Now, let's zoom out and watch as this lifeless rock floats endlessly through space.